Hello and welcome to OpenRelay Screenside Chats, episode 14. Today we're going to talk about OpenRelay Pools, which is a new feature we've just launched in the last couple of days. As always, these slides are available on slides.openrelay.xyz, so if you want to follow along or check on things, scroll through the slides independent of the video, you're welcome to go to slides.openrelay.xyz and check it out. So as an introduction, Pools is a new feature. It says launching soon. I actually thought I might give this presentation before it launched, but it has actually launched now. So it's not just soon, it's already there. It allows for bespoke standard relayer endpoints on OpenRelay. So there are several parameters that can be managed independently on each pool. And that ends up giving us several different URLs. So here we have api.openrelay.xyz/v2. That's our default pool, the same one that we've always had. But the way Pools was implemented, it turned our original API endpoint into essentially just a default pool, but it's still a pool. Then we have, just as some examples, you could have api.openrelay.xyz/someguy/v2, have some guy's pool that's some guy's custom set of orders. And then api.openrelay.xyz/greenlist/v2 is a pool we haven't launched yet, but hope to soon, which will include all of our greenlisted tokens, which are the tokens that we want to directly put in front of our users. So there are several parameters that a pool can tune, and we'll talk about each one of these in a moment. The first pool is fees. Then we have ingest criteria, search criteria, an order count, and an expiration. So as far as fees go, each pool can have its own defined fee structure. The fees are defined as a percentage of OpenRelay's base fee. So right now we are charging 0.2 ZRX. A pool could be set up to charge the same fee as the rest of OpenRelay. It could be set up to charge no fee. It could be set up to charge double the fee as the rest of OpenRelay. So each pool can define its fee in terms of OpenRelay's base fee. We still have flat fees, so we don't make our fees a distinction based on the value of the assets being traded. And we are still flexible in terms of maker fee and taker fee, at least as far as the fee is configurable as a parameter. When we talk about another feature, we'll talk about how pools can still kind of adjust from away from a flat fee or away from to a fixed maker percentage and taker percentage. The second parameter that each pool can control is their ingest criteria. What this means is contracts can restrict what orders will be allowed onto an order book. So each pool can give us a contract and an Ethereum contract. And when we receive an order that's submitted to a particular pool, we will check that order against the contract that was specified for that pool by calling an order book filter function where we pass in the pool ID and the 0x order, and it will return either true if we are allowed to include that order in the order book, or false if we should not include that order in the order book. So this essentially allows for open-ended rules around what orders can be included in the order book and what orders should not be. Some examples: you could have a user whitelist that is managed on the blockchain, so only a specific set of users could submit an order to this pool. You could have a token whitelist so that only orders where the maker token and taker token are in a defined set of tokens could be included in this pool's order book. You could also do things like check the fee structure. So you could say this contract has some mechanism for valuing the tokens that are being traded. So we are going to make the ZRX fees a percentage of the assets being traded rather than going with a traditional fixed fee structure. You could also have a smart contract that fixed the maker fee and taker fee ratios. So you could say, the maker is going to pay 30% of the fee and the taker is going to pay 70% of the fee, and that could be enforced by the contract associated with the pool in order to restrict what orders can and can't make it into the pool. I'm sure there are a plethora of other things that could be done with the order book filtering contracts. This is just a small handful of examples, but essentially you have access to the entire blockchain to evaluate whether or not an order should be included in the order book. So it's fairly open-ended what you could do within this function. The next parameter that a pool can define is its search criteria. So pools can have search parameters that span the entire OpenRelay order book. So this is not just orders submitted to the pool. The search parameters for a pool can constrain things to things that were submitted to that pool, but it can also include orders that were submitted to other pools or the default pool. So the search criteria are specified in terms of a search string for the v2/orders endpoint. So if you're familiar with the standard relayer API, there are a number of search parameters that you can include when you're querying the v2 orders endpoint. Most of those are things like, what is the maker token? What is the taker token? Who is the maker? What is the exchange contract address? And things like that. So you can use any of those normal search criteria that you can use on our orders endpoint. You can also add in a pool name, and we have prefixed these with underscores to indicate that they are custom OpenRelay search parameters and not standard relayer API parameters. So if you set the search string for a pool to pool name equals some guy, that will only show orders that were ingested through the some guy pool. So that means they were submitted to api.openrelay.xyz/someguy/v2/order instead of any other pool. Alternatively, you could do something like set taker fee equal to 0, which will show any orders regardless of what pool they were submitted to, so long as the taker fee on that order is 0. Now, we've included this for a couple of reasons. There are a number of different sites out there that aggregate orders from a variety of different sources, and some of those sites don't like to mess with things where their takers are going to have to pay fees and a token that they may not have. So by creating an endpoint that only includes orders where the taker fee is 0, we make it easy for those sites to search for tools where orders where the taker fee is 0, which are easier for them to deal with. So that could mean that for whatever reason there is no fee. Maybe it was submitted through a pool that does not require a fee, or it may mean that the maker is carrying the entirety of the fee. So these are the way you can handle search criteria. Does anybody have questions about the search criteria or anything we've covered so far? Okay, so sorry?
I was saying I'm good.
Okay. The next thing that we're going to cover is the order count. So OpenRelay administrators can restrict the number of open orders in a given pool. So a pool is considered full when the number of open orders reaches the order limit on a pool, and no more orders will be accepted into that pool, but old orders are still there and will show up in that pool's order book. As orders are expired and filled, new orders can be submitted. So this would potentially allow us to say, here you have a pool that can have up to 1,000 orders at a time in it, which is more constrained than a completely open-ended pool. But if somebody canceled orders or filled them or expired, or the orders were expired, then they would be able to submit new ones to that pool. The final parameter that we have on each pool is the expiration. So pools can have an expiration date, And if a pool is expired, then any valid orders are still served out of that pool, but new orders are not accepted. So again, kind of like the order count, if somebody has a pool for a while, lets the pool expire, they won't be able to submit any new orders to that pool using the ingest criteria for that pool, but any orders that were submitted before the expiration of the pool are still searchable and available for other people to fill. Any questions about expiration or order counts?
I was going to ask what's the benefit of having an expiration date on a pool?
So that's a good question, and we'll get into this shortly. Right now, all of the pools that we have were created by us and essentially have an open-ended expiration date. In the future, we hope to give people the ability to create their own pools through the blockchain. And when we get into self-service pools, we have this idea that we may sell someone a pool for a month and that they can refresh that pool on a monthly basis if they want to keep submitting orders through it. And that may give them special capabilities like the being able to submit fee-free orders without any fees on them and stuff like that. But they pay up front instead of having to they essentially pay a monthly fee instead of paying per order. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Austin, I have one more to bounce off of you. Limiting pools by total number of orders they can accept at any given point has some interesting implications as far as things developers might do with that. Do you have any thoughts on some neat example applications for use like that?
Well, so yeah, again, when we get into self-service pools, there's kind of an idea, we might even sell, say, for $5 a month, a pool where an individual user could upload as many orders as they want. Maybe have 10 orders on the books at a time, and not have to pay fees on those orders or have any fees associated directly with those orders. In any case, we'll get into some examples when we get into the self-service pools.
Cool.
As I say, with our initial release, we have our default pool, which is the OpenRelay that you know and love. We have our fee-free pool, which includes only orders with no taker fee. They may have a maker fee, so the fee-free is a little bit of a misnomer, but essentially that means anybody who is searching that pool will find things that will not require a fee for them to fill. We are also open to partnership opportunities. So if you have a use case for your own pool, we can set one up for you. Depending on what you're looking for, we can negotiate some arrangement. Soon, we hope to launch a greenlist pool, which will include only orders for tokens that have been thoroughly vetted by OpenRelay. We have a blog post about our token vetting process, and our blacklist and our gray list and our green list. So we hope soon to have a pool that will include only our green listed tokens. As it stands, we don't really have the ability to do a search for multiple different tokens, but that's a feature we've got kind of on the back burner, but it will help us implement this green list pool. And another big feature that we're hoping to have out relatively soon is self-service pools, which will allow people to create their own pools with certain constraints. So there's a lot still in flux with self-service pools. We're not entirely sure how it's going to work. There's a lot that we have left to figure out. But the idea is that each pool would be represented by an ERC-721 token, and that OpenRelay will sell pool tokens with limited configuration options already set up. So we may sell a pool token that says the owner of this token can submit orders to this specific pool without having to pay a fee. And we may give, well, some possible examples of things that we may do with these pool tokens. We may have a free pool token that will allow for unlimited users, unlimited order count, no expiration, regular OpenRelay fees, but you get to specify custom search parameters, so you can constrain what orders will show up within this pool. Essentially, this is not that different from just specifying search parameters through the regular API, but it gives it kind of an alias for a certain set of search parameters. So that's probably not something we would charge much, if anything, for just to be able to slap a name onto some search parameters. For a relatively low cost, we might say that one user could upload up to 10 orders at a time to a pool that would expire at the end of the month unless they renew, where they would have to pay no fees. So that this is basically allowing people who do a small volume of trading to be able to submit their fees up front with relatively low cost. Next is at a medium cost, we might say for unlimited users, you could have up to 1,000 orders live with a pool that will expire monthly with no fees, but only accept fees for only accept orders for one particular token. So if somebody had a token they were trying to promote and trying to get some trading volume going on, they might pay for a pool that would allow people to trade that token with no fees. They would have to submit that orders to that token to this pool, and then it could either be filled through the same pool or any other pool whose parameters would allow that token to be included, or those orders to be included. And then at the high cost end, we might allow somebody to have unlimited users, unlimited order count, pay us on a monthly basis to have no fees with essentially unlimited trading. So this would be if somebody wanted to run their own full-blown DEX, didn't want to manage their own order book. They wanted us to take care of the order book service, but they don't want our fee parameters. Essentially, we would manage their order book for a fixed monthly cost and allow unlimited trading through that pool. Does anybody have any questions about these examples, or perhaps some other examples that we could throw out?
With respect to like games, could somebody do something specifically with the ERC 721s?
Potentially. So yeah, I mean, we could potentially say that we have a pool that can only trade ERC 721 tokens, or only ERC 721 tokens from this particular set of contract addresses. When I say on the medium cost example here, no fees for one particular token, I'm not necessarily meaning only ERC20 tokens there. It could be ERC 721 tokens as well. And when I say one particular token, it could be a small set of tokens instead of one particular token. Again, it's not real clear at this point how we're going to handle the self-service aspect and give people the flexibility around this and figure out the costs. I think most likely we would sell the examples that we have here would be things that we could just provide predefined tokens for anyone who wants to buy them, but for people who have more customized requests, that may be something that we need to work with them to figure out how we're going to realize that and what we're going to charge for it.
Cool. I mean, spoiler alert, I kind of knew that we could do just exactly what we talked about here, but I wanted to get that distinction out there because there are a lot of folks who might be interested in creating exchange-like functionality for games.
Right. Yeah, and again, those 5 initial parameters that we talked about, where we have the fees, the ingest parameters, the search parameters, the order counts, and the expiration. Though we have within OpenRelay, we have as much flexibility as we want, for those specific parameters. When we get to self-service pools, we will probably constrain some of those parameters with respect to price. But as we encounter individuals who or organizations who may want things that we have not created predefined tokens for, we can create those tokens that point to an ingest contract or what have you, that will constrain things the way they want them to.
Cool.
So that's it for pools. Next time, which will probably, hopefully, be in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about our DevOps processes. That's something that we've been spending a lot of time on recently, and talk a bit about how we do OpenRelay deployments and what's going on behind the scenes with a lot of this. So does anybody have any other questions before we let you go? All right. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next time on OpenRelay Screen Side Chats.